welcome to Backstory Sessions. I'm your host, Matt. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Pat. I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Kat. Hey, everyone. How are you?
Well, I would say this, Matt, has been an enjoyable February backstory of love month. We had some really great love stories.
Yes, for sure. It was, it was pretty interesting. I mean, I'm not a sappy Valentine's type, but I did enjoy giving all those little tidbits
Well,
about the history of Valentine's Day and that sort of thing.
well, I just enjoyed like your Valentine's trivia, and I getting all three candy answers right. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
it started out pretty strong for me there.
yeah,
And and so this story this week, is a little bit different. It, because sometimes, you never know, like in love or really in anything else, like what the path is, or what like at any time fate's gonna drop some kind of obstacle in your way.
yeah, that's true. I mean, certainly I'm assuming she's had her share of ups and downs.
Yeah, and so we're gonna hear all about her love story. I think this is exciting too, though, because this is our first, I believe, our first guest that their career is primarily on stage. We have a lot of actors that start on the stage and then they, move to the screen. And some end up always, coming back to the stage, like periodically. Because I think when it comes down to it, I think all true actors really like there's nothing like live theater. Even if you like make gazillion dollars on film and that kind of thing, like there's something special about the stage and live theater.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'm trying to think if there's been anyone else. I mean, we've talked to a lot of musicians who they spend their life on a stage, but I can't think of any other actors. Most of them have been like you were saying. They start out on the stage and they go into movies and you know whatever. But yeah, I think she is the first one.
Well, and so to be, multi-talented, which you have to be for the stage, and like in acting for film too, it doesn't hurt if you, like if you're a stunt person, if you're able to do like certain things, you open yourself up to more opportunities, or you could potentially. But, so in order to be on Broadway and the musicals, she'll need to be able to sing well, act well, dance. Like there's a lot that goes into being successful on Broadway.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Do you like musicals?
I mean, I guess some of them are pretty good. Others are just beyond me. I haven't seen a whole lot of them, so I can't say I can't say that I love them, but yeah, some of them are pretty good.
Well, there's a Prince one that's coming out, so I'm really curious how that's going to be. I would love to see that.
Is that like gonna be? I mean, is that like a Broadway show or
Yes, it's gonna be.
really? What's it about? Do you know?
I'm guessing it's gonna have a lot of purple in it,
Yeah, yeah, but I
And,
mean, is it like about like is it about his life or like you know?
I guess it would be, with his songs and
Yeah.
all of that implemented into it. So I don't know when it's premiering, or opening, but I really am very curious about that. So I'm looking forward to, maybe the opportunity to see that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe it'll come around, or maybe you'll get to Broadway. You've been before, right?
I have, yes. I took many students, like, I don't know, there's probably like 70 altogether.
Yeah.
Uh, and we all went there and saw Phantom of the Opera. And then also I took another group, it was my birthday actually, to a touring Broadway to see Hairspray.
Hmm.
And that was really great. Kids really loved that. I did too. Like it was kind of surreal when I was having my surgery the year ago and really, thinking about, the Hairspray is, Good Morning Baltimore. And, I was in Baltimore and all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
I never, it has a lot different feel to it in Hairspray than it does when you're like there. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, especially there for surgery. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think like I wanted to write a musical. Like that's still something I have on my bucket list. And if you ever like get your guitar in, if you get
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna write a musical someday, I feel like.
Yeah. What would your musical be about?
Well, I do have some ideas already, like of straight plays that I also have a few songs already written. So,
Hmm.
you know, yeah, it's gonna be. I think it will be, a love story, of course, and
Shocking.
but I just feel like once you get your guitar, it'll be like the universe saying it's time to write that musical. So maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it ends this year. Who knows?
Yeah, I would not put a lot of stock in that one. I just don't think I could write songs.
But you never know until you try, right?
Yeah, that's true. I just don't think I could write any songs that would be, I mean, musical worthy, I guess. I don't know.
But you have experimented with like lyrics, right? So,
Yeah, I have. So I don't know. Maybe. I just can't, like, melodies don't really come to me.
well,
So,
I just feel like you had never written a play either when I first met you.
yeah,
Right.
that's true.
There you go. See? So I just feel like listeners that I will be able to have that effect and we'll just like write a musical from us someday.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're still working on Unstoppable, so, don't hold your breath.
Now you have said on the podcast a couple of times that
I've said
y-
it we're almost at the end of year 4. I've said it every year. So, I mean,
well, this could be the year that you mean it.
yeah, I mean, I think I have we have 2 other projects ahead of it, so that we're really close to finishing. Uh, but I mean, Unstoppable, yeah, that's something that I'd really like to get done.
Well, what is possible, and I have it also on my this year list. So, I have a long list of things. Like this year, there's a lot of things I want to accomplish. And so I got like a bucket list, which is your like long term projects. And then, I've got my list for this year. And one of the things, like, with Tri County Mystery Meets, we are exploring, like, we do comedy, definitely dinner theater, comedy, mystery, whodunit type things.
Right.
Uh, but in July, we're going to actually do our first full length drama. And you know how I love dramas. So I'm so, like, excited about this. But, Unstoppable, the play, which correlates closely with the book, I really want to get that staged too.
No, that would be cool. I mean,
It would be amazing. So, I'm thinking it could be a good time to have the book finished and just like premiere 'em both at once. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'll have to be later in the year. So, because I got.
yeah, I'm thinking around my birthday month would be, a great time for that.
Yeah,
So,
November, huh?
yeah,
I
so
better start on it now then.
you better get with it because,
Yeah.
the birthday train is a coming.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
For
yeah.
you, it stops for you first. So,
Well, yeah, that's true. It does.
but at any rate, I mean, we're probably not going to write a Broadway successful musical, but, you know, who knows? I do have aspirations to write one. So I admire and I'm looking forward to talking with Tamara just to, see what inspires her and like what age she started working towards this. Was this always her goal? Just all those questions.
Right.
And she's crossed over into music, putting out her own music.
Right. I remember seeing the poll that you put up about her first guitar.
Yes, isn't that so amazing that she still has that guitar
Yeah.
and was kind enough to send us a photo of it. And we were able to post that in the group and see if anyone could identify it. And we had a lot of guesses.
Yeah, everybody thought it was a Martin.
Yes, yes. Did you think so as well? Or did.
I I wasn't really sure. I thought maybe it was like a Yamaha or something.
Hmm. Well, we will learn out it and we will learn in this interview exactly what it is because I'm going to ask, but she was very kind to send us the photo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I mean, if anybody wants to tour Martin guitars, their factory is about 20 minutes from me. So.
Well, would you be the tour guide if somebody
No,
comes in?
they have a tour that you do. You walk through and get to see how they make them, and it's pretty cool, actually.
So
They're-
you've been on the tour.
yeah, I did it years ago, but
Awesome.
it's pretty interesting, and of course, it ends in the gift shop where if you know anything about Martin guitars, they're not cheap. So it's
Well,
pretty interesting to go to the gift shop and they have guitars that are, 2, 4, 8,000, that sort of thing or more.
I think it's interesting, like, that most of the people we interview, they have their favorite, guitar. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly it's just something that a certain type or even a certain model or maybe even the first one that you ever owned.
well, it's fascinating, talent and how it evolves. And just the fact that we have been able to tell so many amazing backstories is, I just love it. Every week I look forward to hearing, how did that guest get to where they are today?
Yes, and who might be coming up next?
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy about who's coming up next.
Yeah, I guess you'll have to wait till Monday to find out, but it's going to be
That was a
interesting.
clue.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk to Tamara and see, find out about her backstory.
Yes. Tamara, I want to welcome you to Backstory Sessions. I am so excited to talk to you today and hear all about your backstory.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, I mean, when you have a mantra that is peace, love, and hilarity, that is a person that you want to interview. Um, so let's start with that. Like, why did you choose that? Like, what do each of those words mean to you so much that you would include them?
Well, I had to think long and hard about what is my mantra because I do like to work towards peace in my own life, in the world, love, just, of course. And then I didn't want to follow with just joy, which I think joy, encompasses a lot. It's more hilarious. It seems like my coping skill and my spirit animal is probably a monkey. I've always, I've always, you know, if you saw me backstage at any of my shows, I'm always up to some antics, swinging from the rafters or knee sliding into the wall. So I, I, I had to include hilarity because it's like I love to make people laugh. I think if I weren't an actress, I'd want to be a clown full time, So I had to use hilarity instead of just joy.
Well, I am glad that you used that word because I own a touring dinner theater and we do comedies. And so there's something about laughter,
Oh,
that
yeah.
makes it's just really a good thing. People want to laugh, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it's imperative, and I do find that's what I often say that my backstage show is much more fun than my onstage show, depending what I'm doing. I like to
Yeah,
get my dressers laughing. I like to get people backstage laughing, and in my life, just anytime I can get someone to laugh, it's like I'm just hiding and waiting for that moment to pound.
well, what is something funny? Like, share a story with us that, that you made somebody laugh, maybe unexpectedly, or, what's a funny story that you have?
Well, okay, I'll go with some of the stuff I used to do when I was in Les Mis. Well, there's so many. I would make my dressers laugh by I'd try, it's almost like I would be developing my material. I don't know. Just instead of just putting my feet into a gown 1 foot at a time, I'd hop into it both at the same time and, do a forward roll or something. Just slapstick comedy. When I was in college and I was able to wear my high-heeled shoes, and it was snowy out and really icy, I got really good at like acting like I was really slipping on the ice when when people were far enough where they couldn't help me, and I'd be like, slide, 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 and they'd be almost to me. I'd go, no, I'm fine, and then keep walking. So stupid stuff like that, or helping someone off with their coat and ending it with it on me backwards, stuff like that. I mean, it's fun to do that.
Yeah. Do you ever like make TikTok videos or things like that?
No, but I should.
You should.
I should. See, that's the thing. I'm thinking, oh gosh, if TikTok had been around 20 years ago, I probably would have started it. And I keep thinking I should go to TikTok, and I just haven't yet.
You've got to now. You've got to
I know.
demonstrate one of these or something.
The gauntlet has been thrown. Well, like one of the things I want to do on TikTok is like do dancing to the oldies, and I'm not talking old music. I'm talking really old music, like classical, like Carmina Burana or something like that, which I think would be ridiculous, but fun.
Well, we'll be looking for the launch of that.
Okay. Why not?
And it's funny that you said like the really old music because Matt and I have had this discussion before. He was listening to the radio, which told him like the oldies music was like the music we grew up listening to. Like 80s music is now.
You go, ouch.
Yeah, really.
That's not old.
I know. I don't know what's wrong with the radio, but okay.
I was in the grocery store over the weekend, this past weekend, and I heard Twisted Sister playing on the the PA system. I was like, what? I mean, usually it's like some classical version of some popular standard kind of thing, but no, Twisted Sister. I was like, huh.
You got to wonder who's in charge of the music that day,
Yeah.
You never know.
I didn't realize it was something that, that would be played over the PA system in a grocery store. Usually it's like Muzak or whatever. So
I know, right? That is
right.
Interesting. Don't tell me that's become Muzak. No.
I know.
Don't do it. Don't.
Next it'll be Motley Crue.
Yeah, it's like those oldies. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
that feels funny. Oh my goodness.
Well, so in your backstory, let's go back to the oldies of you.
Oh dear.
You come from a long line of talented women, and I find that to be fascinating, but also great that you have that line of women to inherit all these, like genealogy skills or whatever from.
Yeah.
So tell me
Things
a
that are in your DNA. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is, my dad always said that I came by it naturally. And I was thinking about that the other day, how my first instrument was accordion, that an accordion salesman showed up at the door. I thought he just showed up. I was 4 years old. When does that happen? But I guess they had made an arrangement for this guy to stop by with his accordions because my parents were interested for some crazy reason to take up accordion. And they put a little one on me and I started playing something and they were amazed. They were like, she comes by this naturally. And I'm thinking, accordion is not natural. Anyway, but there wasn't, my grandmother would play for us and I loved it. She'd sit us down and she'd play piano with her left hand and marimba with her right hand sometimes. She'd play marimba with 8 mallets, which is unusual. She was very
Wow.
talented. She'd play ukulele. And then her mother, Bertie Chestnut, was a one-woman band as well. So she'd have a kick drum, a banjo, or a guitar, and
Hmm.
of course I can't think what it is.
One of those
Anyway,
things.
yeah, one of those things, a mouth harp.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that harmonica, there we go. So I never got to hear her play, but I feel it. Like I've picked up instruments and not known why I can play it pretty easily right off the bat. And I jam with people. It's like my greatest joy is to just get with a bunch of people and they'll be like, we're going to do this in A minor. I'm like, yep, don't tell me the key. I'll hear it and my fingers will know what to do. It's so strange.
Hmm.
I can't even explain it. And it's helped to go to music school to, learn more and have more of a head knowledge. But I got to say, what just comes natural to me works best for me. Anyway, that's a long answer, but
Oh, well, that's a great answer because I was going to ask about that. In fact, I mean, I never knew that, there were accordion salesmen or whatever, like coming to your door.
I know it was strange. Well, and I grew up learning accordion, which actually helped me. The left hand is the circle of fifths. So learning the accordion and my second teacher, it turned out she was second place in the world in 1969. There was a Russian who won first and a Russian who won third, and this tiny woman from Kansas, I think it was Kansas, won second place in the world. And she was amazing to me. She was a good teacher for me and made me
Wow.
work hard as a little kid. And so that was kind of an interesting, like just something. And she became best friends with my mom. So we were just surrounded by music that way. Besides the fact that my grandmother would always sit us down and play for us and sing for us and make up songs. So it was very rich with the music background. So I feel very fortunate. So back to the accordion with the circle of fifths. When I went to college and people were having trouble with theory, I was like, oh, this isn't hard. I just used my left hand from the accordion. And it really helped me know what I was doing.
Yeah. So you really, as far as learning music, had the best of both by, having that natural ear for music and talent, and then, the on paper part of it of like how it
Right.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
you're just pretty amazing. I mean,
Well, that's sweet. Well, it's funny because then like when I was 10, I begged my mom for an accordion and I'm sorry, for a guitar. And they came through, they got me a guitar from the janitor at the elementary school where she was teaching. And that was like when she took me in there to get the guitar, it was like opening the Holy Grail. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? This because I'm one of 5 kids and we have very few things that we got that was our own, but that guitar was my own, So, and then a little bit later, I begged for a violin and they came through with that as well. And so I was just lucky that my parents saw that there was something there. And I'd play by ear so much that it wasn't until I was in high school. And one day I was playing in the orchestra and I was looking at the music going, what the heck? What is that? I had been playing by ear so much that I woke up to the fact that I didn't know what I was playing anymore.
Right.
And then I really learned how to read music after that. But it just cracks me up that it's one day it just dawned on me.
Well, the guitar, like, I know, I mean, I can imagine what that was like when you got to see it and know that was going to be yours. But what do you remember about it? What kind of guitar was it?
Gosh, what was I don't remember the brand because that wasn't important to me at the time, but I did go to every person.
Like,
I was like, a Kai? I don't know. It was just a Fender. I'm actually not sure. And I still have it. I need to go open the case. Say, what is that? Isn't that funny? I don't remember those details. I remember broad strokes. But I would ask every single person, I was like, do you play the guitar? Do you know a chord? And I would ask everyone if they could teach me a chord. And then I learned a song, a Girl Scout song, it was like, flick around the campfire, the wind in the pine. And it would go through, C, G, D, A, the 4 chords. And aw, it was very cute. I learned, yeah, it was, and that's the thing is if you can learn 3 or 4 chords on a guitar, you have a wealth of music that you can learn.
True.
so you were singing already? Like, have you just been singing? You're like since you remember talking, you've been
Pretty
singing.
much. Yeah, my mom used to say I would go out on the swing set and I'd be singing at the top of my lungs. And, it just was there. I actually got in trouble in kindergarten because they said I kept singing. And I was like, yeah, but that's in my head. I didn't know anyone could hear me. And I didn't understand why I was getting in trouble. I was like, what am I doing?
Get out of my head.
Like, oh, so it's pretty funny,
Oh, it's pretty mean to get in trouble for that.
I know.
The thought
So
police.
then you started writing songs at 10, I think it said. That's pretty young. Have you always had the words in your head, along with, did you get in trouble for those?
Yes, no. What's funny is I actually, the first little thing I wrote was probably a little bit younger. It was about pancakes because I love pancakes, but it, it didn't come easy to me to write lyrics, to tell you the truth. And I struggled with it, just assuming that I wasn't a writer. And so it wasn't till like 2005, I think I read The Artist's Way and I started, writing in a journal and doing some things like that. And I wrote some songs and I did my first album. And it's funny because the first album I did was supposed to be like a cabaret because I came from the Broadway world and all that. But I started writing these songs that were actually very close to my heart. And I thought, no, I actually need to record this music. So that's what I did. I ended up recording those songs. And even then I thought, I'm not really much of a writer. I'm just doing this because I want to. And then during the pandemic, I decided since I had been on tour and it was sort of like, I better do something or I'm going to go crazy. I think we all did. So I took some online courses in songwriting and I learned how to collaborate with other writers. And I started writing with people all around the world, like really different backgrounds. And it really opened the world to me. I really started seeing that, yes, I write a good melody, but if someone else has a good melody, I suddenly have lyrics. It's like, and one of the mentors said that she really thought I was an all-rounder. Well, she's from the UK, so you're really an all-rounder, Tamra. I was like, oh, okay. And if she hears me do that, that's a bad impression of her, actually. It's like really bad. Sorry about that. But, so I learned how to do production, which I've always wanted to. I never thought I could because that's a man's job. You know how you do that to yourself? You decide that someone else can do that.
Right.
I just started realizing, if you give it time, if you give yourself the time to learn and develop the skills, it's like, wow, I have written 100 songs over the pandemic and released some songs that I did the production on, or at least co-produced as well too. So it's been fun, and part of that is just staying curious and staying. I mean, I've gotten off your question already. Again, I tend to do that, but I'll circle back. What do you want to know now? Okay.
Well, I'm curious with the songwriting, co-writing with others. Songwriters that we've interviewed before talked about how it's kind of like a first date, and you can almost tell pretty soon into it if there's going to be a second date or not. Do you
Yeah.
find that?
Yeah, sometimes you can tell right away, and I think it's good to try out. I've written with a bunch of different people, and there are a handful that I've written 4 or 5, 6 songs, and so you can tell. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, we've gotten into a nice flow, and we can do this. And I just started writing with a really good composer I've known for 30 years. I've probably known him 30 years, and I really wanted to write with him, and he finally said, I have some time. Let's try this. And he does more classical music. And he is what they'd call writing up. Like, he challenges me because he's so good with music and so good with words that it really makes me work harder. But boy, we wrote a song pretty quickly. Some things heal. He actually wrote most of the lyrics on it, but it was it was it was great writing with someone like him because it was so fast and I had to think on my feet. And we're now almost done with the second one, pretty much done with it, and already started on a third one. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to write with others and be able to bounce things off of them and listen to their stories and try to. It made me think it's very much like being in the theater and working with other people on a show where you're working collaboratively, with your lines and bouncing things off of each other. It's also just thinking of storyline. When you're writing a song, you're creating a world, you're creating an experience and a story all at once. And
Well, I'm curious because I am always curious as to how people respond to criticism. So when you're co-writing, if maybe one of your ideas, like if someone offers some feedback that you might feel is critical, coming from the theater, I'm sure you've had that experience. Like,
oh yeah.
well, how important is that in the way that you view it?
Yeah, I think the thing is you have to develop a safe room with your collaborators. And you'll find out. Like, I've only worked with a few people where it felt like it really shut you down and just said no to an idea instead of thinking. I always think of it like comedy. It's yes and. And some of my favorite directors have been that way too. You say, I'd like to try this. And they say, okay, show me. And you show them what you want to do. And they say, oh, yes. And why don't you take it this far? So you're building on something and being, forthright. Like I think like I've written with even 1 or 2 people at a time in the same room. And it's almost easier 1-to-1 for me when it's just me and another person. But it's like, in any case, being able to say, oh, that's not really working. Does that work for you? And saying yes to their ideas. Never say no to an idea because you never know what's going to bloom. So I say, type everything out, try it out. Let's try it. And I think a lot of times both sides know. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really work, does it? It's not flowing right. But I always try to give everything its chance because, like in acting, I've gotten notes from directors where I'm like, there is no way that's going to work. There's no way. And then I try it and I go, wow, that was really freeing. Thank you very much. you know, and that's the same with songwriting. And I think that's where you find out if someone is a good collaborator for you is, do they open you up? Do they open up your humanity? Do they help you see? Do they make you better? And if they're shutting you down and you recognize that you're being shut down, sometimes I go, is that just me? Is that me being emotional? And it's like, no, this doesn't feel right. Then it's like, well, thank you very much. It was nice to work with you. And then you move on. It's just,
Lose my
uh,
number.
but I think it happens,
Yeah.
and someone could be your best friend and you still go, wow, we just can't write together. And that's okay. you know, you just have to hold it that way, that it's not all important. And then there might be people, I've written with a few people where I thought, well, maybe, I'm not sure we get along. And then, the words just flow, the music flows. You go, wow, this is interesting. It's just interesting what you can find, working with people and just being open to it. So, yeah.
Matt, do you have a question?
So you were in Les Mis. So I guess we should back up a little bit and tell us when you got into acting. I mean, how did all that come about?
Well, that goes way back. Well, my sister Jeannie had been doing plays at school and I was really curious about it. So that kind of got me curious to do an audition. And so it was, I think junior high school was the first little thing I did. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, but in high school, there was a really good program. We had a really good choir director. So the music was good, and a really good theater director.
Mm-hmm.
And so watching my friends and I think my brother was in a show and then my sister I was like, I want to do that. So that's how I got into it. And it cracks me up because I really had no background at all in it. And I think the first show was Oliver and my sister got Nancy and
Mm-hmm.
I got lead dancer. And if you would have watched me do the dance, I was like selling it from the waist up and not knowing what the heck I was doing from the waist down. I was just selling it. I was like, that's interesting. Lead dancer. Okay, good. Jazz hands. Okay.
That's hilarious.
So that was my big entrance into the theater. And then I did several shows in high school. And then I got to college and I actually missed the audition for the first show. I can't remember. Oh, it was Pippin.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I couldn't get to the dance call. And she said, well, if you can learn the dance, so I had to find some other students that knew it. And so they taught it to me and I had to go out and do it by myself. Again, dancing with, I'm not a dancer, but I did it, and I thought, I got to hand it to myself. I wanted it so much that I just would do anything to get there. I'd practice on my own. And then the next year they did Guys and Dolls and I wanted to do Adelaide and I'm really not really right for Adelaide. But I rehearsed it and rehearsed it. And when I got out there and auditioned, they laughed at what I did. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I got cast and the upperclassmen were a little bit pissed off at me. I'm sorry, but I was like, sorry. I just wanted it. No.
So from there, you went to Broadway
and right straight from there. No. Well, no, but when I got out of college, I had done a few. Well, there was a new dinner theater that had opened up while I was in college called the Wayside Inn, and so I did a couple of shows there. And it was the first time I did a professional. I'm doing quotes with my fingers. A professional theater. We got paid for it, and we did I think 4 shows a week, and got a square meal beforehand because it was dinner theater. I was like, oh, that saved me from eating top ramen every meal. But I got to do Guinevere in Camelot and Maria in West Side Story in this little theater for a 3-month run each. And so that was a real nice proving ground for me to see if I could do that. That was really nice. I'm really thankful for that And then I moved back I'm in Colorado. I moved back to home with my mom and dad for a little while, and I saw that they had auditions for a couple of the theaters there, and they were doing Man of La Mancha. So I went to the call, and I'm right for Antonia, so I auditioned for that. And when I got the call back, they said, "You've been called back for Aldonza." And I was like, "Mom, I didn't audition for Aldonza. You got it wrong." And I'm thinking, my mom doesn't know the show. So I ended up and that one was a funny audition because it was an open call. I mean, the first, I don't know, 300 people showed up. It was like, it was so full, this theater, and everyone was in there for the audition, just standing in line. And they said, well, just do 8 bars. And so I was like, well, I want to do the best part of 8 bars.
Yeah.
So I got in there and I was like, I started on the high. Every neck in the place cracked, like it snapped over. Like, what is she doing? I did that a few times, so that was fun. So I did those couple of shows. I did, and then I worked at the Denver Center for 3 seasons. And then that's when Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera were coming to Broadway. And I sent a tape back in those days. We did tapes. I went to a recording studio and I made a demo tape and I sent it to Johnson and Liff, who were casting the show on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And 6 months later, after I got married and moved twice, they found me. They called and said, "Can you be in LA next week?" And I just happened to be going to LA that next week. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" "Yes, I'm going to be there anyway," which was so strange because it wasn't something. So, it's one of those things where you go, I think this was meant to be, because it was so strange.
Neat.
Yeah, it was neat. And so, I did I did Broadway. They did hire me for the tour. I understudied Cosette for about 3 months. And then Melissa Errico was the Cosette at that time. And I guess she sprained her ankle helping someone move. And so I get to the theater after like goofing. I was on the road and we were in Baltimore and I'd been shopping all morning. It was a matinee and they're like, "Tamra, you're on." I'm like, "Oh, how am I doing?" So I went on as Cosette that day. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Wow.
And then the guy who keeps the show clean was there, Richard J. Alexander, and he said, "We need a Cosette in Bus and Truck. We'd like to move you over there." And I was like, "Oh man," I didn't want to leave this beautiful company I was in, but it was the chance to move into the role. So I then moved to the Bus and Truck and performed with them for a while. And like I said, I was a newlywed. My husband was traveling with me, and then tragedy hit because we were out there about 9 months, whatever it was. And he started getting sick. He suddenly had a brain tumor. And so that was terrible. And Richard was really great about it. He said, "Listen, you don't have to go on with this." Cause I, at that point we had come through my hometown and you know how you always want to return home and show people what you're doing. And it was like so sad that Ben was in the hospital with this, getting surgery, and I couldn't sing. I couldn't do the show half the time that I was there. So they let me leave the show at that point, and the show moved on without me. And then I cared for Ben for the next 9 months. And then he actually passed away. Sorry, I'm like giving you the whole thing.
No, that's fine.
This is the whole real truth,
Yeah.
He passed away, and then I had about 5 months where I was just kind of floundering, and they called me back. They were like, "We're in Chicago and we need Cosette cover. Can you come out?" And I thought, you know what? It's going to make me cry, but it was the perfect thing to happen in my life, is that, all our money had gone to his bills, and I needed a job. And I thought, that's the perfect job to get, where you're in brown rags half the time. Oh, good, this is perfect. So it got me back into singing again. And then at the end of that summer, the Cosette, who was the main Cosette, took a vacation. So the stage manager said, "You're going to need to go on next week." And I said, "Okay." And so I flew my mom out there to see me in Chicago, and we had a great week together. But her flight was early or something, or it was late coming in, and I was trying to get her to the apartment, and she doesn't know Chicago, so I had to bring her to the theater. And if you know anything, you do know a thing or two about theater.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to bring people backstage after half hour. So I went to the stage manager, and it was a huge backstage. I went to her. I said, do you mind if my mom just stays back in the corner over there and knits during the show? And I think she just thought that was cute. So she said, okay, sure, that's fine. So I come to the stage for the start of the show, and there's my mom sitting right next to the stage manager listening on. She let her sit right there off stage right with her and watch the show from the side. I was like, oh my God.
That's awesome.
So anyway, so that was my foray back to the stage after that tragedy. And then that closed in Chicago. I went home for a few months, and then they said, can you come back on the road? We need a Cosette in the bus and truck again. So, and then I was there for a couple of years, and then I left the road and I moved to New York City finally. So at that point, I'd saved some money, and I think that's the best way to go. Save your money first, and then move to New York City.
Definitely need it for New York.
Yeah. And after about, I don't know, I can't remember, it was about 5 months. They were looking for a Cosette again, and they called me again. And at this point, they're like, I feel a little embarrassed, but we haven't seen you in a little while. So, they're expecting I've gained 50 pounds in 5 months or something. And so can you come to the backstage and, meet us? So I came backstage, and Richard J. walked in again, and he saw me, and I thought, I'm going to wear the cutest little outfit. I'm just going to look real cute. And I call it my little bee outfit, So he saw me, he goes, oh, you're hired. I thought that was hilarious. He goes, oh, by the way, how's your singing? I said, better than ever. And he goes, good. I mean, so that's how I landed Broadway, is they took my word for it. But he loved me. He loved me in the show, I guess. Otherwise, they wouldn't have called me. Yeah.
I mean,
it was amazing.
So was it how nerve-wracking was it to be on Broadway? I mean, was that like one thing that you always wanted to do, or?
Oh, well, it's what I totally wanted to do, so I'm telling the story in 2 or 3 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever.
Right.
But, this is years of, while I was working in Denver, people are like, visualize what you want and put it on your wall. So it's like I had a picture of New York City, and I had Les Mis. I really wanted to do this. So I'd really put it out there. And I was like, yes, and I'm going to have limos picking me up with, if you know anything about New York, you don't really get limos unless you're a huge star. But wouldn't you know it, that someone had a friend who was a limo driver, and he would give us a ride home. I was like, well, I'll take it however it comes. Anyway. But yeah, I had been dreaming of it forever, but I'd say I was more nervous my first night when I was when I was in the show, it was such a great company, really talented people. And so it was nerve-wracking because I hadn't really gotten out of Colorado to do much. I'd only done a couple of shows in Texas, so this was a big deal. But then touring, I toured for 2.5 years with the show. So by the time it got to Broadway, I was like, yeah, I know the show. It was a bigger turntable, which was interesting.
Yeah.
It's a smaller theater, but bigger turntable. So you just had to get used to going a little faster in certain cases.
The world is.
But I literally was on Broadway for 2 weeks when I woke up to it going, oh, this was my dream. I'm sitting in my dream. Now I have to think of the next dream. What do I want next?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
What did you decide on?
Well, I really wanted to still do Phantom. And when I did leave Les Mis, I did get to audition for actually I auditioned for Phantom 6 times. And that last time I auditioned, I was like, boy, if I don't get it this time, this is silly. Because it was over several years. But I thought I really need to think about what am I what am I doing wrong, or what can I do more right, type thing.
Yeah.
And I really listened to the women who had been doing the role and thought, okay, it's not like I need to mimic them, but there's a certain vocal quality I think they're listening for. So I thought, I sing that way when I sing I Could Have Danced All Night. I'm going to take that song in. That's what I'm going to sing. And I sang it and they were like, yeah, they were like, oh, yeah. And then I think they had me sing a few other things. And then as I was leaving the room, they said, oh, and by the way, how's your dance? Again, dancing. And I said, well, I got to tell you,
I was the lead dancer.
I was the lead dancer in junior high school. That's hilarious. I said, well, I'm a mover and a shaker. But what's funny, because then I was still doing Cosette in the evenings while I was rehearsing for Christine during the days on their stage. And the choreographer was like, well, actually, you're saying you're not a dancer, but she said, you're actually doing better than, I shouldn't say this out loud. Sorry, other Christines, but she said I was actually holding my own pretty well. So I thought, well, that's nice to know. Because I never felt like I was a good dancer, but I could sell it. Like I told you, I can sell it. Oh my God. I would say I was bon en point, that's not very nice, but that's what I would say. I was always felt like, because, they have really gorgeous dancers in that show, beautiful ballerinas who really know what they're doing. And then you get me out there in a tutu. Well, anyway, it was fun. It was great fun. My favorite part, though, I have to say, I'm so glad I got to do Christine because I got to ride in the boat.
Wow.
Isn't that terrible that that's my favorite part of the show? And dodging the chandelier when it came down. They're like, you're cutting it a little close. You need to get out of there sooner. Like, no, I love this part. Anyways.
All right, Kat, what do you got next?
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like a lot of your life in some ways is like, I don't know, pre-planned or this thread of something that runs through it. Like, so I read the premonition, like when you heard play me,
Yeah.
that you knew then that you just knew that you were gonna be traveling and performing.
Right. And I was like 10 and I didn't know anything like that. That's not something I would have been even able to like put together that I just know it just, I could see it that I would be traveling and singing. I didn't even know what it meant, because I was so young, but I would, I would lay on the floor and put my feet up on the couch and just play that song over and over. Like that is such a huge memory for me. I thought, my God, that actually came true. And I don't know if I dreamed it or if it was like just this is going to be your life. Get ready.
At first when I was reading that, I was like, okay, she's just an obedient type because, play me is the title and you're just like, playing, doing what it says to do, play me. But then, I think reading about Ben and that
Mhm.
you got married after 3 months, I think.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
was
I knew
that
on the
like,
fifth, I knew like on the fifth date, but I waited to make sure it was right. But yeah, if we hadn't gotten married so quickly, I wouldn't have been able to help him through that last part of his life. You know what I mean? If we had waited a year, we probably wouldn't have been able to get married. So I feel like there was some sort of divinity in that somehow. And I'm not, it's
yeah, so
it's interesting.
it seems like that's just a thread as I was looking over, different
Mm.
aspects of your life. I'm thinking like, wow, there's just something like that guides her and as to, what to do,
Yeah.
I guess. And so, you know, here you are.
Yes, here I.
And music now is a big focus again.
Yeah.
And the pandemic, is that something good that came from that time, when everyone was, because you were touring, I guess, with Anastasia, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
everything just shut down. And
Yeah, it was a great tour too. It was nice people, and I was going to be seeing friends in some cities, so it was really hard and we didn't know our last show was the last show. I mean, we had an inkling, but literally it was just one show at a time. And just 2 weeks before, I was covering the Dowager Empress, and I thought, Joy Franz is so strong. She never missed a show, but she happened to eat a bad piece of fish, I guess. Wasn't feeling good right before the intermission, but it was around this COVID, inkling was happening, and so they didn't want me to go into her dressing room, but they're like, "You're on." I had 5 minutes to get ready out in the hallway, you know, and I went on for her in the second act. So that had to have been strange for the audience to have, this woman who's the right age for it. And then anyway, but it was really wonderful to go on and do the second act. But then 2 weeks later, we closed down, like just like that. They're like, pack your trunks and go home. And they kept thinking we were going to go back on tour, but it became clear that that wasn't going to happen. And it's funny because the 2 years preceding this, I kept thinking, I got to make some room for writing. I was trying to write. I was doing some things and just wanted some time to do it. And so suddenly I realized, oh, I've got a pandemic here where I'm forced to be home. Sorry, everyone. I was hoping that I'd have some time off. It's like, it's my fault. Sorry. Anyway, it was once I settled into getting into writing with other people, and that was wonderful, actually. Just, I was meeting with people every day. I had a very full schedule. I actually had to, once the pandemic was over, I'm like, I've got to settle down. I'm doing too much, actually. Like I said, I wrote like 100 songs, and now I'm trying to play catch up to produce them, the ones that are worth being produced. And, it's pretty funny that I made, actually almost did too much, but it was great. I mean, it was wonderful. And then I got to go to the UK and meet some of my co-writers in person, and got to go to Spain and go to a songwriting retreat, which was pure heaven, pure heaven. I mean, just really fantastic people. So yeah, I'm all in on that, but I'm still on this, I say on the side, but I'm a whole creative person. So it's like my agent still calls me for auditions, and most of them are self-tapes at this point. And like next week, I'll be going to New York and I'm going to see some shows, because I have to still be up on what's happening on Broadway, and hopefully something will come through. But I'm quite happy to just be creating no matter what I'm doing, Yeah, just enjoying it.
well, Matt, I knew it was going to be a fascinating story.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's for sure.
thank you.
Lots of twists and turns there, for sure.
Well,
So what's going to be next? I mean, I know you said you're going to New York and all that, but like, are you doing another album, or I mean, what do you got planned for this year?
well, yeah, I'm going to continue. I've got a bunch of, like I said, a bunch of songs I need to work on. I've been working on some productions for one of my co-writers who wants to put out the album of social justice tunes. And I've got a handful of tunes I want to do. And for the past 5 to 7 years, I've been working on a Joan Baez tribute show. And so I'm getting that up on its feet finally. And I have a band, August Moons, and we're planning some dates this spring. So he's up near Montreal, and I guess there's going to be a full eclipse on April 8th. So we're going to have a big jam session and do some shows around that.
Awesome.
And that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's what we're aiming for there. And I'm working on some albums to put towards sync. I've got a song that's being considered for Heartland, which is amazing, and one that's being considered for a Christmas movie that I don't even know what that is. Like, you just have to release release your children and let them go. So, write them and let them go.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's, it's just, I feel like I'm in a constant process. It never ends,
yeah.
and
Well, I
it's
mean, got to stay busy, right?
right, exactly. Well, I always say it's not even just busyness. It's following the joy. It's just saying, oh, this looks fun. What does this do?
Oh, not doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. Whoops. There's been plenty of that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Kat, one
So,
last question.
Yes, since February is the month of love, at least commercially. What is your favorite Valentine song or love song?
mm, the one as you were saying that, it made me remember the song I sang for my great aunt and uncle's 50th anniversary. I'll be loving you always. It's just sweet.
Mm.
But I don't know. I mean, I love songs. I love songs. I also like quirky ones. I submitted a couple songs for this radio show, and my song Never Too Late is going to be played, and my song Lucky, which is pretty silly. But yeah, I actually like silly love songs.
I played Paul McCartney.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Very good. Very good. I'll take that compliment. I'm just like Paul
Just like,
McCartney. Great. That'll go in my promo material. Thank you very much.
Paul McCartney-esque.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, some call me the Paula McCartney of silly love.
Oh,
Well, it has been a delight to have you. I love your story and the enthusiasm and really just the way life has, just led you to create more and experience more and just to keep going and like the oddest twists and turns. I just love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's all very strange, but I just flow with it, roll with it, and it's been a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, and
Come back anytime.
sending out lots of love to your listeners. Lots of love, sending it all to you.
Aw.
Well, thank you. You can come back anytime and let us know what you're up to. We'll be happy to talk.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can send those to Kat at iWritePlays@outlook.com, or you can write to me at backstorysessions@gmail.com or matt@level11ventures.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.